Along with everyone else on the internet, I was absolutely gagged when I saw this look that Chappell wore for a reading festival, and it was done by the really talented D Makeup Art, who I've known for a couple of years already. And it's been really great to have seen her evolution from when she first started posting on Instagram, doing makeup looks on herself, to now doing makeup looks on celebrities like Dolce and now Chappell. And seeing all the wonderful looks that Chappell has worn on her face and on her body has really stirred up the itch again for me to do a clownish white makeup based look. And I really wanted to experiment with gothic styles again, so let's do this makeup look together. So I'm starting off by blocking my brows, and I already have a brow blocking tutorial when I posted my Lady Gaga series a couple of months back. So I'll just run through it quickly again, but if you want the full version, you can watch it over there. I'm gluing down my brows with some lash glue, and I found that this is the most efficient way to do so, mainly because my brows are super stubborn and they refuse to stay flat. So a quick drying glue like lash glue really helps get the initial brow lamination step done really quickly. If I would have done this with just normal glue stick, it would have taken me way much more time. And I'm using my favourite DUP lash glue. And I'm using tapping motions to press it in instead of rubbing it so that the lash glue doesn't get rubbed off. And then I just like to go in with a layer of glue stick just to secure everything in and to sort of smoothen out the surface of my brows. I'm taking some translucent powder and really pressing it into the brow. And the glue was like 90% dry. So I'm really pressing it and making sure that the powder sticks onto that glued surface. Next I'm going in with my colour corrector. I'm using Kosas Magic. And I'm using a dry powder puff to press it into the brow. And I'm setting it with some more press. And I'm setting it more loose powder. Now I'm taking some concealer. I'm doing the first layer of concealing. And within every layer, I just like to set everything down so that things don't move around and add the next layer on top of it. For my base, I'm not really looking to do a full white base, so I'll be mixing my typical white base that I use, which is the Danessa Myricks Vision Cream Cover in the white shade, with a next to the Fix Foundation. I think I want to do an equal part or 1 pump each. And I'm just applying it all over my face. And I'll be blending it in with a flat foundation brush that's really dense, and I'm patting the foundation in so as to maximize the coverage that I get. I'm making sure to blend it out properly around my jawline just to soften that line in between my natural neck color and my face. And I also like to blend a little bit of foundation onto my lips. I just set my face with the Arsemi powder, and now my matte base is done. So the look that I'm envisioning has a couple of thread goth elements to it. So I'm going to start by mapping out the shape of the eye look that I want to do first. I'm just going to be using my Makeup by Mario Neutrals palette, and I'm taking this flat-ish sort of fluffy brush, and I'm going in with the grey shade as the base shadow. And first I want to map out where my brows would be, so I'm aiming for like a straight, spockish kind of brow shape. I'm going to be extending it into my temple. And then I'm gonna map out the nose contour. And I want to connect this to the start of the brow, so that it looks like my nose starts from a different point on my face. And I'm really dragging down that contour to get that thread goth shape. And then I'm also using it to contour my nose. And the whole time I'm staring straight to the mirror to make sure that both sides are symmetrical, before going in with the leftovers on my brush and blending out the nose contour. Next I'm going in with a little bit of that black, and I'm reinforcing that inner nose contour that we did. I'm feathering it out into the inner corners of my eyes. And I'm using whatever's left again to also deepen out the nose contour. And I want to use some plummy shades for this look, so I'll be using both my Viseart Dark Matte palette and my Colourpop Matte About Hue palette. And I'll be mostly using these pinky shades here, as well as these two plummy shades in this palette. And I'm going in with this mid-tone pink, and I'm using this to blend out the contour that we did. For blending, I do always like to start off with a lighter colour, so that there's a more gradual transition between the shades. And it's really important to go in with a light hand so that the shadow diffuses well on your skin. And I'll be bringing it onto my actual brow bone, so that'll be the start of the new crease that we made. So after I do the initial layer of eyeshadow, I like to go in with a little bit more just to emphasize and deepen up the colour. And of course I'm blending it down towards my nose as well. Next I'm going in with this lighter plummy shade, and I'll be using it to blend into the nose contour. But because you put down the initial layer of pink, it makes the blending a lot easier and the transition is a lot more seamless. And then I'm taking more of the shade and then pushing it into the part I want it to be the darkest. And next I'm taking the purple shade and I'm using this directly onto the black. And I'm making sure that it doesn't go over that template that we did in the beginning. I'm using the black again to further deepen up the shadow, and the flat shade of this brush really helps to get that crisp edge. So look at how gorgeous this blend is. I'm really happy with it. Next, I want to do a plummy blush thing too. So I'm taking the same brush again, but I'm just rubbing off most of the excess powder on my hand. And I'm using the same pink from the Colourpop palette. And I'm applying it close to my bottom lash line. I'll be using the same colours essentially for my blush. And I'm extending that shade into an elongated wing shape at the bottom. And this time I'm holding the brush almost flat onto my face, so that the most of the pigment gets blended out really quickly. And then I'm flicking my brush to get that soft but clean edge of the blush. And then I'm taking that same plummy colour and just deepening up the blush here, closest to my eye. Next I'm going to be mixing the lightest two purple shades in the Colourpop palette, and I'm using it to blend the plum into that pink that we put down. Now working on my actual eye itself, I'm taking the pink and I'm blending it at my brow bone. So I'm creating a new crease. Next I'm going in with this liquid eyeshadow from Floresis, and it's this yellow-green shade that they have. And I'm putting some of it on the back of my hand. And I'm taking a small rounded synthetic flat brush, and I'll be using this to essentially carve out my crease. And I'm also placing that shade on my brow bone. And I'm going in with the applicator itself to just get a more opaque layer of shadow on my eye. And also creating a rounded shape in the inner corner. Next, I'll be mostly working with these green shades in the Colourpop palette. And I'm taking the lightest lime green shade on a flat brush, and I'm packing it on to the liquid shadow just to set it down. Next, I'm taking the same shadow on a smaller pencil brush, and I'm blending the green into the purple that we put on first. I'm really making sure just to blend out the edges because I don't want the purple to entirely disappear. So using a smaller brush for this gives you a lot more control. And I'll just be moving between the pencil brush and the flat shader brush to blend out different areas of the eye look. So at this end, I'm gonna be blending out that curve that we did. And I'm blending this area out into the entirety of my temple. I'm blending it onto that line of demarcation that we put between the blush and the eye. Now I'm going into the Viseart palette, and I'm going in with this brownish olive green shade mixed with a little bit of this green here. And I'm blending it into the outer corner of my eye. Okay, as it turns out, putting too many layers of powder on liquid shadows isn't a good idea because nothing is blending on top of it. So I just added a new layer of liquid shadow on top. Oh my god, it's so much better. And I just want to be building this purple to green gradient on the outer part of my eye. So I'm going between the green and the purple pink shadows. With the fluffy brush again, blending out some pink into the purple on the brow bone just to brighten it up a little bit against the green. So I'm basically building up the color as and when it's needed, because sometimes when you first lay down the color, you can't really tell if it's enough. But once you start laying down other colors against it, you'll be able to tell whether there's enough contrast between the different colors that you put down. So in this case, I really want to deepen up this inner corner part, also brighten up and intensify the plummy pinks that we used, so that it stands up a lot better against that really bright green that we used. And then on top, I'm just gonna use some of the lightest pink to really brighten up this area. So just using a little bit of pink really helps to create more contrast. Next, I'm taking some white eyeshadow and I'm gonna mix it with the lightest lime green here, and I'm using it as my brow bone highlight. And I'm taking just the white before taking some of that pink that we use and patting it into the intersection where the white and pink meets. And I'm gonna really press that pink here to get a rounded shape in this part of the eye. In this case, it's really great to match the shape of your brush to the shape of point that you want to do. Next, I'm taking some white liquid shadow, this one is from House Labs, and I'm mixing it with some of the fluorescent stone that we use to create a light green color, and I'm using it to highlight my inner corners. And I'm gonna do a rounded shape as well, just to mimic this part of the brow. And I'm bringing a little bit into the inner corner. And I'm also using the same shades in the center of my eye. And I'm setting it with the white mixed with the lime green. I'm going over with whatever shadow I used again, just to blend it in seamlessly with... Next, I'm taking some of that black shadow, and I'm intensifying the wing shape. Now that the shape of the wing has been established, I'm going to use a black liquid liner just to draw it out. And now for the brows, I'll be using an angled brush with some black eyeshadow, and I'm following the shape that we drew in the beginning. And I'm elongating the tail of the brow to my temple. And then I'm gonna draw a line here. And I'll be filling in this tiny point with more black shadow, creating a gradient. Then I'm smoothing out the line, making sure that the front of the brow is a little bit thicker than the back. And really blending that black downwards into the inner corner contouring that we did with the plums. So now my brow is sort of like this ambiguously smoky yet really sharp and defined brow. And now the challenge comes with replicating it on the other side. So I'm taking my black liquid liner and drawing a point. And now it's time to tackle the blush again. I personally like the bounce between the top and bottom so that I can just get a good sense of what is needed to balance both sides. So I'm taking that same plummy shade from the Viseart palette. And now I'm gonna deepen up this inner corner portion, as well as to deepen up this outer wing part of the blush. In order to get that wing shape, I really make sure that I don't press too hard on the brush, and then I'm flicking it out towards the end. And same as for the front, I'm just using the tip of the brush and then running it underneath the inner corner highlight that we did. And I'm going with the fluffy brush on the beginning, and I'm blending this new color downwards. Next, I'm taking my Kosas pressed powder in Candy, which is a really pale pink. I'm using a fluffy brush, and I'm using it to feather out the edges of the blush again. I'm using some white shadow on the same brush, and I'm highlighting the inner corner close to my nose. And I'm taking some of that candy shade again from Kosas, and I'm blending that white into the pink so that the brightness isn't too harsh. So we're imitating that pink highlight that we did on the brow bone on the cheeks. So this is the color portion of the face done. Next, I'm just going to curl my lashes, put on mascara, and put on a really big pair of falsies. And using this really huge pair of fluttery lashes. I'm placing the end of the lash a little bit higher than my lash line so I can get a lifted lash look. I also cut up this lash that I have, and I'm using this portion at the end of my lash. I'm using my fingers to press the two lashes together. And for my bottom lashes, I'll be using these pair of top lashes. They're way shorter and flutterier than the top lashes that I use. And even though these are lashes that I wouldn't normally use on myself without such heavy makeup, it's really nice to play around these kind of like big lashes to balance out the overall look of the eyes, just because it's really top heavy, so why not just emphasize it. And for the bottom lashes, I'm going to follow the shape of the plum shadow that you put down. So this are the top and bottom lashes done. And now for lips, I'm going to go in with a lip liner just to shape up my lips first. And for this look, I do want a really pointed cupid's bow and a really rounded lip. And then extending my lip line out a little bit. And I'm filling in my lip. So I line my lips using Makeup Forever's Artist Color Pencil in Endless Cacao. And I'll be topping off my lipstick using Rare Beauty Strong. To finish off the look, I'm going in with some highlighter in the form of Cleona's Adornment, which is a really pretty pink to green to yellow shifting kind of shadow. And I'm taking it really lightly on a fluffy small brush. And I'm applying most of it on the highest point of my cheekbone. And with whatever's left, I'm going in and brushing it along that bottom perimeter of the blush. And I'm also applying it on the brow bone area. And lastly, I'm applying it to the center of my lid. And for my nose, I'm going in with a pale white highlighter. This is from Can Make. And I'm applying it mostly on my nose. Nose bridge. And I'm extending it up to this middle part here. So yeah, this is the finished look that is inspired by the look that Chappell Roan wore for the Reading Festival, done in my own way. I really wanted to play around with plums and greens, which is one of my favorite color combinations. I also incorporated some gothic elements to this look, like the really pointed brows, the contour down my nose, as well as the pointed cupid's bow. So I hope you had a lot of fun watching me do this look. If you do recreate it, I would love to see. And if you want to see more of my stuff, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I have 2 different accounts on there that are both listed on the screen. Leave a like and subscribe if you liked my video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Oh my god, I forgot, but for the final touch, I want to take some white eyeshadow again. And I want to highlight this portion of the eye in between the wing and the blush. So yeah, this is actually the finished look.